All right, welcome to the first of its kind, world-changing manufacturers network. Lisa Ryan has her ears to the ground and her heart in the game. Get ongoing education and new connections right here with Lisa and the Manufacturers Network. Buckle your seat, listen, and spread the word. Here's Lisa.
Hey, it's Lisa Ryan. Welcome to the Manufacturers Network podcast. Excited to introduce our guest today, Jonathan Hughley. Jonathan is a partner and patent attorney for the Chicago-based intellectual property law firm, Marshall Gerstein. He works with innovators in the mechanical, electromechanical, and software spaces to prepare and protect their patents globally. He has an impressive track record, including helping a client make a successful pitch on the popular television show Shark Tank, one of my favorites. So, Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's so good to be here.
So share with us a little bit about your background and what led you to doing what you do.
Sure, happily. So I've always had an interest in just, understanding how things work. So growing up, I found myself tinkering with my toys to see if I could somehow make them better. Oftentimes I couldn't, but I at least tried. And so this interest just led me to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where I studied mechanical engineering. I was fortunate enough to land several internships while I was in Champaign. These internships were with different heavy duty and industrial equipment manufacturers. And so during those internships, that's where I learned and had my first real experience with manufacturing. In one of those internships, we took a trip over the summer to a foundry. And so that was very exciting for us all. It was loud, it was hot, but it was an exciting experience to be there, actually seeing how different parts were formed. But during my studies at the University of Illinois, I realized that working as a full-time engineer wasn't really for me. I didn't like the day-to-day work. Didn't seem like I was really aligned with that profession. So I sought out different alternatives. Fortunately, my older sister informed me of the field of patent law. And so I thank her for getting me to where I am now and illuminating me to this profession. And so I found the IP law to be the perfect fit for me. And because I can still remain closely involved in different innovative concepts, but I'm not necessarily constrained to one technological sector or one specific area. And so I've been practicing IP law now for about 13 years in Chicago, Illinois, at Marshall Gerstein, like you said. I'm a partner at the firm, and I'm also the chair of our firm's Industrial and Mechanical Technologies Practice Group.
So was your sister a patent attorney or out of all the types of law that you could have chosen, why were you drawn to that one?
Sure. So my sister was in law school at the time, and so she was figuring her way and identifying what she wanted to do full time. And so I suppose she just learned of IP law as a potential field. And one of the, if you will, requirements to being an IP attorney is having some sort of technical background. Having a background in mechanical engineering, she said, "Hey, my brother is studying this right now, and he just so happens to not really want to do this for the rest of his life." And she said, "You should look into IP law as an option and as a profession." And that just opened the door for me. I did some research. It didn't really take that much time because it really did seem like the perfect fit at the time. And now, a decade later, it certainly is a perfect fit for me. All I needed was that one spark to get me interested in this field.
Interesting. So why do you think that intellectual property strategy is important, especially in today's complex and competitive global market in manufacturing?
Sure, good questions. I'll take a step back and just describe the different areas of intellectual property, if I may. So IP, intellectual property, is generally a bucket term that can include patent, copyright, and trademark protections. So patents are a way to protect your inventions or new processes. Copyright protects artistic works that are in a tangible form, and also original works of authorship. So books, movies, songs, and those types of works. And then trademarks are used to protect words, phrases, designs that identify a good or a service. So as it relates to IP strategy, that can encompass all of those things, and brands should be keen on protecting all of those different areas, because it's very easy for competitors to try and claw away at different aspects of the company. So it could be their actual products. It could be the brand recognition of their products. It could be a number of different things. When we say IP strategy, this could include not only existing patent portfolios, it could include future patent portfolio management, competitive landscape analyses, licensing and enforcement strategies. Those different areas can serve as the foundation for a company. And especially given the fact that innovation continues to increase really at breakneck speeds, especially now with the advent and implementation of AI, small improvements to products and designs and those processes can have a huge impact on sales, can have an impact on just a number of different factors that are necessary to sustain growth within the company. And so it's important to consider protecting these improvements early and often, because you can be certain that competitors are well aware of what their competitors are doing. They're well aware of where they see the market shifting and where the market sees a need for different improvements. And so if you're not keen on developing a robust IP strategy and portfolio, these companies could get left in the dust, honestly. You see the big innovators are the ones where they generate much more media attention for their efforts. IP can be used as an advertising arm as well, because companies can just say, look at how much we continue to improve. We listen to our customers, and here's where we have improved our products. It can, like I said, IP protection can be a foundational piece in a company's portfolio.
You mentioned AI, and in my business, I am a super user of it, probably not to the extent of manufacturing products, but I think of from an IP standpoint, what is there a percentage of your work if somebody just decided to go and use AI and create something? Can they patent that, or does the patent office really take a look at all of that to see, has it been done before? Was it human generated or was it AI generated? It seems like we're getting into some real legal sticky waters there.
Yeah, we most certainly are getting into legal sticky waters, if you will. And I hate to use the common attorney phrase.
It depends.
It does depend. Yes. I'll try not to, I'll try not to use that much more during this episode, but it really does depend. Manufacturers should and are beginning to implement AI processes in their manufacturing processes. It's just a way to enhance how something is produced. Oftentimes, one example, at least, of a very strong implementation of AI and machine learning into manufacturing processes is vision systems. These systems can literally inspect a produced part or a portion of a part and identify whether that part meets the spec requirements or the tolerance requirements for that manufacturing process. Those vision systems can then, easily just identify, okay, this product needs to go to this bin because it's not approved. This is within spec, so it can, proceed to the next step. Obviously, these systems can perform at a far faster rate than human eyesight can. And what I typically recommend to manufacturers is just think of ways that they can use AI to supplement what they're already doing. Use it as a supplement to their processes to improve their manufacturing steps. Now, as it relates to the patent process, AI can certainly be protected by way of patents, again, depending on what that AI module is doing. If we're only talking about computer code software that's purely within the purview of the processor, the United States Patent and Trademark Office typically says that's not enough for innovation. We need to see more than just software code and a program running on a computer. If that program is being used to improve a process, improve a device, in some way assist in making hardware, actual physical hardware improvements. Those types of innovations, we have seen more acceptance from the United States Patent and Trademark Office as it relates to innovations. So it depends on how that AI, how the software is actually working. If it's just working on its own, then that's not going to be enough. But if it's working in conjunction with a product, a device, then chances are you might be looking at something that could be patented.
Okay. So when we're looking at intellectual property, how could it actually be a sound investment strategy as well for manufacturers?
Sure. In some ways, IP can resemble the stock market. Companies have a number of innovative concepts, right, within their teams. They're exploring different innovations, different products, but they don't necessarily know which one is going to be the big hit, if you will. And it's important to try and protect as many of those ideas as financially feasible, because it could be 3, 5, 10 years before the market actually sees that product. And so if you take the time at the early stages of the R&D process, if you take the time to ensure that your idea is secure, protected as best as possible, product can make its way through the testing, manufacturing processes, make it to the marketplace. And if it does eventually catch on, which is obviously what companies hope, they hope that their product is the next big thing. If it does do that, then they'll in turn have that security blanket as a way of, in the form of a patent. Like I said, we don't know, we can't predict, unfortunately, what's going to be the next big thing. And so we want to make sure that you protect as many potential next big things as possible early. Another way that IP can be used is to block competitors, right? So if a company knows this is where I see the market going, this is what there appears to be a need in this area. Let's just say, for example, a new manufacturing process. It seems like parts are being manufactured using this new and unique process. It may not be the case that the particular company is interested or has the resources or is equipped to undertake that new manufacturing process, but it could still file patent applications in that area as a way to block its competitors from doing so. Patent protection can serve in a number of different functions. It can protect not only your actual products that are directed, that the patent describes and covers, but it can also just be used to preemptively block those potential products from the competitor.
Okay. And you mentioned innovation a couple times in that. So when you're looking at larger, more established organizations, how can intellectual property be used to positively encourage innovation in those organizations?
Sure, that's a great question. This is a problem that many more established companies do face because it oftentimes takes time away from people's primary responsibilities. Say, for example, an engineer, they're doing testing, they're trying to design new products or processes. It can take time to put together a draft of outlining what their innovative concept is. And it can take time to talk to the company's internal patent team, and certainly can take time talking to external attorneys like myself. But that time commitment, it certainly will pay off down the road as companies can see can see the reward of the end product, and that being their name on a granted patent. And so I've helped a number of clients implement patent celebration days where a patent wall is unveiled and it showcased a number of all of the granted patents from that company. We had, I want to say, probably 100 to 150 employees at the last one earlier this year. And that just generated a buzz, right? They can see it on the wall when they walk in. They can literally see, oh, wow, this concept, so-and-so created this new idea. They can go talk to that person. And it's, again, foster just interest in IP. Reward-based incentives are oftentimes used, financial rewards, depending on the budgetary constraints of a company. That might oftentimes be something that is worth exploring. It can get expensive, especially if you do generate a lot of interest, but I think that's the goal. You want people to be talking and brainstorming. And additionally, what I oftentimes do is try and gather different teams together in these large brainstorming sessions where one person from a certain group will just spitball an idea that they've had and what they've been working on. And then someone else in a completely different group might say, oh yeah, that might be helpful because we face these different issues as it relates to packaging our products. And their juices start to flow and they start to collaborate. And I oftentimes think that when you get to a level of strong collaboration, that's when things and innovation becomes more and more healthy. Actually, my partner at my firm, Kate Neville, she recently wrote an article on this topic. She has a background in biopharmaceutical and biotechnology. So her article had a slant towards biopharma companies. But much of what she shared, that actually can apply here, but just with a slightly different twist to it because R&D as it relates to drugs and pharmaceuticals, there's a push there to publish their innovations and their inventions, which is for good reason because that can lead to funding, that can lead to additional interest. But you want to make sure that your IP is protected before you do. And as it relates to manufacturing, while publications aren't really the key driver for encouraging innovation, typically it's a trade show or just bringing the product to market, you still want to ensure that you're protected before you do that, before you take that first step.
Now, you mentioned that this can be an expensive process. How early in the process should somebody start looking at potentially going through and getting an official patent on their product or on their idea?
We typically recommend our clients pursue or at least speak to us or speak to someone on the patent team very early in the process. We don't necessarily need to start drafting a patent on day one, but it certainly wouldn't hurt to talk to folks early because the opposite of that is if an engineer or an inventor says, hey, look, I've got this product and I'm bringing it to the marketplace tomorrow, that is a fire drill where we have to rush to try and get something in place with the Patent Trademark Office quickly. That's not great. It usually doesn't result in a very thorough, thought out patent application. And so we tend to recommend that we are involved early, not only just so we have more time to fully flesh out what needs to be in the patent application, but also so we can assist with identifying whether it makes sense to pursue that patent protection in the first place. As patent attorneys, we have a little bit of a higher viewpoint of different technologies and where trends seem to be heading than perhaps an engineer who's doing the day-to-day work in one specific field. That's not to say that they're not aware of the competitive landscape and what's going on within their field, but we have the benefit of just seeing things perhaps from a higher perspective, a broader perspective. Similarly, in-house counsel at a company or patent counsel at a company, they have the ability to identify market sectors where there seems to be interest in certain from a growth and demand perspective, where different technologies or innovations might be more or less relevant. So speaking with someone like myself or a patent attorney or counsel within the company is always a great idea because they can guide the inventors on how to pursue that innovation. They can guide the inventors on whether it makes sense to even pursue it. And that's completely separate from a technical perspective if there's a need in that marketplace. Seeing things from a slightly different perspective can certainly help those engineers and innovators just identify where their time could and should be spent.
I'm not going to let you get off the show without talking about Shark Tank.
Certainly. So what do you want to know? I can talk you through that process it was fun.
Well, what so I don't know if you can give what the client was or what the pitch was, but how did you help them to get through that process
Sure.
and get onto Shark Tank? Or I have no idea what, I've been watching it almost since the beginning.
Sure. Yeah, so I didn't have much, I didn't have any involvement with the actual Shark Tank process, right? So
Okay.
one thing I think that you may see if you're a dedicated watcher of that show is oftentimes they do say, look, my product is either protected by a patent or patent pending, because
Yeah.
that's one of the questions that the sharks almost always ask. So my client, our firm's client, is in the space of fitness equipment. And so it was a very unique tool in that it helped with retaining weight on a bar. Typically, when you bench press, you put an end clip of some sort right next to the weight plate so it doesn't slide off.
Mhm.
Our client came up with a new and unique approach to that weight retention, and he reached out to us. He told us that his goals were to eventually sell that product on a large scale to gyms and personal use and whatnot. So we walked him through the initial process of protecting the patent. So he described, or protecting the innovation. So he described what his technology was, what the tool was, how it worked, gave us details on the specifics, anything really that an engineer would have readily available, the strength of the different components, different materials, so on and so forth. And so through this process, we just asked and pushed him to just expand more and more. So what else could it be made of? What else could you use at this one end of the device? Could you try using this? Just to help him foster encourage his innovative process, right? Ultimately, after a few months of back and forth with him, we put together a patent application. It talked about all of the different unique benefits of his product, different alternatives, and provided some nice, pretty figures that were also included in the package. And so we filed the application then, and this was all well before Shark Tank even thought of that, right? He may have had that goal on the back of his mind, but we went through that whole process early. A year or two later, after some back and forth with the Patent and Trademark Office, we ultimately were able to earn him a granted patent. And it's really nice. They don't do this anymore, but a few years back, they were still providing actual printed patent documents. So it's a nice document with a really nice cover, a gold seal. And so he took that with him when he was on the show because I think he had it on display on his table. So he had that. He was ready because he knew that was one of the questions they were going to ask. He presented his device. The name is Snap Clips. He presented it to the Sharks. Actually, I believe Aaron Rodriguez, the baseball player, he was one of the guest Sharks on that show, actually. So it was a pretty cool experience for our client. But he had a lot of interest, and I believe he did. I don't know if he actually accepted the deal, but he did receive a number of offers from Sharks during the show. Of course, a patent attorney is probably going to say this, but without that patent, if he just flat out said, no, I don't have patent protection, I'm not sure that he would have had the same result on the show because, again, it's very unlikely that a serious investor is going to provide their resources to a company, inventor, solo inventor, or perhaps a larger company, a startup, whatever it may be, if they don't have some way of ensuring that they can carve out their space in the competitive landscape. So it really is a foundational question. Do you have a patent? Is there something pending that if you can't say yes to either one of those questions, then the chances are you're probably not going to get much interest from investors.
As we're getting to the end of our time together, can you share some examples of companies that you think have a strong innovation culture, and what are they doing that our listeners can learn from?
Yeah, I think that kind of ties into my earlier response. So companies that have routine brainstorming days, that have these gatherings where even if it's purely internal, where they just sit down and talk about different developments. They talk about different ideas, where they see the company heading in the next 5, 10, perhaps longer term than that. Those are the companies that generally have those healthy, innovative cultures, ones where there is less siloing of different innovations and ideas, but instead someone from the chemical group knows what's going on in the packaging and the manufacturing processes group, or at least has a general idea, or knows who to reach out to if they do have questions. That collaboration is oftentimes really important, because especially now, because many present day innovations have lots of cross-pollination, if you will, between different technical areas. Like I said earlier, my background is in mechanical engineering, but I oftentimes work with clients that have an AI tilt to their innovation. And companies have to be able to identify how they can use different types of technologies to benefit their overall products.
So if somebody would like to get a hold of you and continue the conversation about working with you or just getting started in the process, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn, Jonathan Hughley. There's not many people with my name, so you can find me there. Or you can just go to marshallip.com and then search for professionals. I'm just listed there as well. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm quite active on LinkedIn. You may see that I've commented or shared one of my colleagues' posts quite often. But yeah, either just go directly to our website, marshallip.com, or just LinkedIn, Jonathan C. Hughley.
Wonderful. Jonathan, has been a pleasure having you on the show today. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm Lisa Ryan, and this is the Manufacturers Network podcast. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to the Manufacturers Network podcast. Do me a favor and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues so we can grow this network and connect more fantastic folks just like you. You can either send your buddies to the website at manufacturers-network.com or share the Manufacturers Network podcast on your LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or wherever you and your industry friends hang out. The bigger and faster we grow the network, the stronger and deeper the community we'll all have. Thanks again, and I appreciate you.